The H Group building touched the sky as if it wanted to swallow the entire world. On the 87th floor, Han Ji-woo controlled billions with a single click, but he had never noticed the girl in the blue uniform who silently cleaned the hallways. Kong Haun, 26 years old, arrived every day before sunrise and left after dark, completely invisible to everyone. Until that day. Excuse-me. She murmured as Ji-woo turned the corner toward the elevator. He didn't hear her until he slipped on a freshly mopped floor. She rushed to help, but their eyes met before their hands did. In that moment, the world seemed to freeze, and something shattered, not his pride, but the wall between their worlds. And with a simple fall, the story began. You walk here? Ji-woo asked, adjusting his rumpled suit while wiping his hand on his own handkerchief. He was more surprised by her face than the situation itself. Yes, sir. Sorry for the wet floor, Haun replied, lowering her eyes but unable to hide the blush on her cheeks. He was silent for a moment, observing her with a mix of curiosity and something he couldn't quite name. She didn't seem to care about his status, nor did she try to make small talk. It was refreshing. Be more careful, he said finally, turning his back. But strangely, his heart stayed behind. In the elevator, he caught himself thinking about her face. A face that was never supposed to matter. In the days that followed, Ji-woo began to notice small details he had always ignored. The neatly arranged coffee station, the scent of cheap soap lingering in the halls, the silent presence of Haun on the lower floors. He found himself waiting to see her, and when she didn't appear, he missed her. You've been acting strange lately, said Seo Jin, his personal secretary. You keep staring off into space. He brushed it off with a smile. Justiert. But the exhaustion came from something else, the effort of ignoring what was growing inside him. Something as inappropriate as it was inevitable. A CEO couldn't fall for a cleaning lady, but he was already in free fall, and it wasn't the ground that scared him anymore. Haun, too, felt the weight of the gaze that now followed her. Do you know the president? Asked her coworker from the night shift, shocked to see her coming out of the private elevator. Of course not, she lied, pressing her lips together. But inside, her heart beat like a drum. That cold man had asked for her name the other day. And today he had left a coffee by the snack machine with a post-it note, for the one who always keeps things clean. She smiled to herself, but fear quickly crept in. What if someone saw? What if management found out? The company didn't tolerate entanglements, and she couldn't afford to lose her job. But it was too late, she had already stumbled, straight into his eyes. On Friday night, fate decided to strike again. The rain poured hard, and Haun was stranded in the building as the last bus left without her. Ji-woo, finishing a video conference with shareholders, saw his reflection in the glass, and behind him, saw Haun curled up in the lobby, her shoes soaked and arms crossed. Without thinking, he went down. I'll drive you home, he said bluntly, like it was a command. I can't accept that, sir, she replied, startled. He insisted, it's not safe out there. And I'm not just your boss anymore. She looked at him, confused. Then what are you? The answer came softly, but firmly, someone who can't stop looking at you. And just like that, the first wall crumbled, with the force of a storm. The rain echoed against the rooftop of Ji-woo's sleek black car as it slid through the wet Seoul streets. Haun sat in the passenger seat, clutching her bag like a life preserver, her gaze locked on the blurry city lights through the window. Ji-woo stole a glance at her, wondering why someone so quiet could stir up such noise inside him. You don't talk much, he said, breaking the silence. People like me don't have much to say to people like you, she replied without turning. He didn't take offense. Instead, he smiled faintly. Then maybe it's time people like me started listening. That line hung between them, heavier than the storm outside, and Haun finally looked at him, as if seeing him not as a CEO, but as a man unraveling. When they arrived at her neighborhood, Ji-woo was visibly uncomfortable with the narrow, flooded alleys and crumbling buildings. Haun noticed. This is where people like me live, she said, stepping out. You should forget this ever happened. But he didn't drive off. He waited until she got inside. Through the rain, He saw her silhouette pause at the door before vanishing. That night, he couldn't sleep. In a penthouse wrapped in luxury, he was haunted by a pair of eyes that didn't ask for anything. Meanwhile, Haun sat on her mattress, drenched socks beside her, wondering why her chest hurt for a man whose world would never allow her in. Both were alone, and both were thinking of each other. The next morning, trouble brewed at H Group. A tabloid published a photo of Ji-woo and Haun near the lobby from the night before, taken by an anonymous employee. The image didn't show much, but enough to spark rumors. CEO Jean stormed into his office. "You need to control this before the board sees it. Who is this girl?" Ji-woo stayed calm. "She's a staff member. And she slipped. I helped her." CEO Jean wasn't convinced. "The board won't like this. They already think you're too distracted." He didn't reply. "Outside, Vispas ran wild." Haun, now the subject of gossip, found herself watched and avoided. She kept her head down, but it was clear, the walls were closing in. During a break, Ji-woo found her alone in the employee garden, sitting on a bench far from view. She looked up, startled. "You shouldn't be here," she said. He sat beside her, ignoring the sting in her tone. "They're talking," she whispered. "They think I'm sleeping my way up. I might lose this job." He took a deep breath. "Then I'll talk to HR. I'll protect you." She shook her head. "That's not protection. That's pity." He turned to her, serious now. "This isn't pity, Haun. I don't know what this is yet, but I know it's real. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise." The rawness in his voice made her heart race. She wanted to believe him, but she'd trusted words before, and they had shattered her. That evening, Ji-woo received a call from his mother, Chairwoman Han. "We need to talk," she said, her voice like ice. At the family estate, she laid the photo on the table. "Are you out of your mind? Dating the help? What will the investors say?" He didn't flinch. "She's not just the help." His mother stood, furious. "You have responsibilities. This company is not your playground. I will not let you destroy our name for some poor girl with a pretty face." He left without another word, but something inside him shifted. He had fought boardrooms and competitors, but this was a war with blood ties. And he wasn't sure if he was strong enough to win, or if Haun would stay long enough to see him try. Haun tried to vanish into routine, but routine had betrayed her. Every hallway seemed tighter, every whisper louder. The stares weren't just from co-workers now, even high-level executives kept their distance, like she carried something contagious. She had become the crack in the perfect glass tower. Meanwhile, Ji-woo sat in board meetings, but his mind wandered elsewhere. Numbers blurred. Graphs meant nothing. "You need to get your head back in the game," said Director Kong, an old friend of the Han family. "The shareholders are growing anxious." Ji-woo nodded, but inside, he was burning. They wanted him to be a machine. But how could he, when every part of him ached for a woman who wasn't allowed to belong in his world? Haun was called into HR. The office smelled like paper and judgment. Ms. Min, the cold-faced director, barely looked at her. "We've received concerns," she began, sliding a file across the desk. "You were seen multiple times near the CEO. This company enforces strict professionalism." Haun swallowed. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just happened to be in the same place." Ms. Min raised an eyebrow. "Then let's keep it that way." The message was clear. Any further entanglement would cost her job. She nodded and left, numb. In the break room, her co-workers avoided eye contact. The girl who used to be invisible had become a cautionary tale. That night, Ji-woo waited by the back exit where Haun usually left. When she finally appeared, her face was pale, her eyes unreadable. "You came," she said quietly. "Of course," he replied. She didn't smile. "They warned me. HR. One more incident and I'm gone." He stepped closer, but she didn't move. "Ten kan vara som wäre Else. I'll help you." She shook her head. "You don't get it. I need this job. I take care of my brother. Rent. Hospital bills. I kennt just wo KW. He opened his mouth, but she interrupted. And it can't be your weakness. You were meant to be untouchable. Her voice cracked. But he tuchet you. And now a fruitings breaking. The next morning, Ji-woo made a decision. During the weekly leadership meeting, he stunned the room. Effective immediately, all departments will receive training on ethical boundaries and privacy. No employee should be punished for unproven rumors. The room fell silent. One director whispered, "Is this about the janitor?" Ji-woo met his gaze. This is about dignity, and it applies to everyone. After the meeting, he found Seo-jin waiting. "They'll turn on you," she warned. "Then let them," he replied. "I won't let her be humiliated because of me." Seo-jin hesitated, then asked, "Is she really worth it?" Ji-woo didn't blink. "More than anything I've ever built." Meanwhile, Haun found an envelope in her locker. No Name. Inside, a plane ticket and a resignation form. A note read, "If you care about him, disappear." Her hands trembled. This was no longer just about rumors or whispers. Zomeone vantet hergone. She ran up to the rooftop, the only place left that still felt like hers. Ji-woo was already there, looking out over the city. She held out the envelope. "Is this your way of protecting me?" she asked. He looked at the paper, then at her. "No. I would never send that." Her eyes welled up. "Then who did?" He stepped forward, voice low and fierce. "I swear, I will find out. And I won't let them take you from me. Not now. Not ever." And for the first time, Haun leaned into him, not for safety, but because she believed him. Chairwoman Han stared out the wide windows of the Han estate, her reflection blending with the storm clouds outside. The walls of her home had housed titans, built legacies, and crushed rebellions. But nothing had prepared her for her only son's disobedience. She turned as Seo-jin entered quietly. "It's worse than we thought," Seo-jin said, handing over an internal report. "The girl's still working at H Group. And Ji-woo's protecting her openly." The chairwoman's lips tightened. "Then we cut the infection at its root." She walked toward the mahogany desk. "Find her family. Everyone has a weakness." Seo-jin hesitated. "And Ji-woo?" The matriarch's eyes turned cold. "He'll remember who he is, even if it breaks him." Back in the city, Haun returned to her apartment after a long shift, only to find her brother, Min-jun, shaken. "A man came by," he said, eyes wide. "Said he was with the housing office. Asked if you had debts." Her blood turned to ice. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. But he knew your name." She sat beside him, holding his trembling hands. That night, she lay awake, heart pounding. It wasn't just corporate pressure anymore, it was personal. Someone was digging into her life, and she knew exactly who had the shovel. Meanwhile, Ji-woo met with a private investigator. "Find out who sent the plane ticket. I want names. I want history. No matter who they work for." The man nodded and disappeared into the rain. At H Group, the climate turned venomous. Haun's locker was vandalized. Gold Digger scribbled in red. Someone left broken glass in her locker, slicing her finger. She bled quietly, wrapping it in paper towels, refusing to cry. In the boardroom upstairs, Ji-woo faced a hostile takeover attempt by a rival faction, one clearly orchestrated by someone with insider influence. During the heated vote, he stared at Director Kong. "You're trying to dismantle the company just to control me." Kong smiled faintly. "We're protecting the company from your distractions." Ji-woo stood, fists clenched. "I won't be your puppet. Not for shares. Not for power." Later that evening, Ji-woo called Haun to the rooftop again. The wind bit at their clothes, the city lights burning below. "I can't keep you safe here," he said, his voice raw. "They're coming after your family now." She met his gaze, steady despite the storm. "Then let them."
Yvonne dran.
I've lived my whole life surviving people like them. He reached out, but didn't touch her.
I want to build a meeting with you. Not in secret. Not in the shadows. She stepped closer. Then we fight.
Together. In that moment, the rooftop felt like the only real place in the world, a place where love didn't ask for permission. 2 days later, Ji-woo held a surprise press conference. Cameras flashed as he stepped to the podium. I want to address the rumors, he began. Yes, I've developed a personal relationship with an employee. Her name is Yoon Hoon. She is honest, kind, and resilient. And she doesn't deserve to be vilified.
A gasp rippelt trug se Kraut. I stand bei her.
Not just as a CEO, but as a man who's tired of choosing duty over happiness. From a back row, Chairwoman Han watched on a monitor, her jaw tight. And in her small apartment, Hoon cried, not from fear, but from the weight of someone finally choosing her out loud. The fallout from Ji-woo's public declaration shook the H Group boardroom like an earthquake. The media swarmed the building, shareholders demanded explanations, and Chairwoman Han summoned an emergency meeting. She watched the broadcast replay in silence, Ji-woo's words echoing in the room. He's endangering everything we've built for a woman who scrubs floors, she spat. Seo Jin remained silent, unsure whether to defend him or stay loyal to the dynasty. He's left me no choice, the chairwoman continued. Effective immediately, he will be suspended. Publicly, we'll call it a health retreat. Privately, he'll understand consequences. Ji-woo received the news with a blank expression. You knew this was coming, said his assistant, placing the envelope on his desk. They want you gone, even temporarily, to avoid scandal. Ji-woo nodded. Then I'll go. But I'm not backing down. He packed a single bag and left his office without ceremony, eyes burning not with defeat but clarity. Across town, Hoon was surrounded by cameras outside her building. Journalists hounded her for statements, strangers shouted obscenities, and online hate flooded her phone. She sat trembling on her bed when the doorbell rang. It was Ji-woo. You should have called, she said, trying to smile. I couldn't wait, he replied. I'm not a CEO right now. I'm just a man who wants to be with you. For the first time in weeks, they escaped. Ji-woo drove them to the countryside, to an old family villa surrounded by trees and silence. There, in the quiet, they healed. They made kimchi together in the outdoor kitchen, laughed over burned rice, shared childhood stories. Ji-woo learned how Hoon had grown up raising her brother alone after their parents died. Hoon discovered that Ji-woo's life had been scripted since birth, every decision controlled by legacy. We're both trapped, she whispered one night. But we found each other. He held her hand under the starlight. That has to mean something. But peace doesn't last long when power is threatened. Back in Seoul, Chairwoman Han prepared her final move, a formal court injunction to remove Ji-woo from the board permanently, citing emotional instability. Seo Jin, torn between her loyalty and guilt, slipped the documents to Ji-woo through a mutual friend. Ji-woo read the papers, face unreadable. She's really going to destroy me, he muttered. Hoon stood beside him. Then let her try. But you won't fight alone. They returned to Seoul, no longer running. Ji-woo called for a shareholders' assembly, one last attempt to defend his position, and his heart. The grand hall of H Group was packed. Executives, shareholders, reporters. Ji-woo stood at the front, Hoon quietly seated in the back. Yes, I broke protocol, he began. Yes, I fell in love. Not with a title. Not with a status. With a person. He paused. If that makes me unfit to lead, then so be it. But know this, I will not apologize for choosing love over control.
Murmurs rippelt trug se Kraut.
Then, unexpectedly, one of the major investors stood. Sometimes, what a company needs is someone who remembers how to be human, he said. Applause followed. Slow, but growing. Ji-woo looked toward the back, where Hoon stood, smiling through her tears. The applause at Ji-woo's final speech echoed far beyond the walls of H Group. Overnight, he became a symbol of defiance, not just against corporate rigidity, but for love that dared to stand in the open. Chairwoman Han's injunction was dismissed in court after public backlash and shareholder pressure. She withdrew from the public eye, choosing silence over confrontation. Seo Jin visited her in the garden days later.
You lost, Madame Han, she said softly.
The chairwoman watched petals fall from a magnolia tree. No, she whispered, I finally saw my son become a man. Weeks passed. Ji-woo returned to his position with stronger support than ever. Ha-eun, though offered an executive assistant role, politely declined. I want to earn my place, she said, accepting instead a project manager trainee position. Together, they balanced late-night board meetings with quiet dinners and long walks through Seoul's back alleys. One rainy afternoon, Ji-woo surprised her with a picnic in their old rooftop spot, complete with instant ramen and umbrella lanterns. I used to think the sky ended with these towers, he said, looking up. But with you, I see how wide it really is. They married in spring. The ceremony was modest but elegant, held in a Hana courtyard filled with cherry blossoms and close friends. Ji-woo wore a traditional cream-colored hanbok, and Ha-eun stunned in pale pink silk.
Minyoon kriegte wohl time.
Even Seo Jin smiled. During the vows, Ji-woo said, I built skyscrapers because I was told that power mattered most. But I would burn them all down to protect your smile. Ha-eun replied, you taught me that love doesn't need permission to be real. As the petals danced in the wind, they sealed their vows not just with a kiss, but a promise to rise together, no matter the cost. A year later, a new division opened at H Group, Han Hearts, a foundation focused on supporting underprivileged youth with access to education, housing, and mental health. Ha-eun spearheaded the initiative, while Ji-woo quietly funded the expansion. In their new home, a simple apartment overlooking the Han River, they welcomed their first child, a daughter with Ha-eun's eyes and Ji-woo's quiet smile.
Chairwoman Han, holding the baby in her arms, murmuret, so fragile.
Yet already stronger than any empire. As night fell on the city, Ji-woo stood by the window, his daughter asleep on his shoulder, and Ha-eun resting nearby with a book in hand. The towers still glowed in the distance, symbols of power and legacy. But in this room, wrapped in quiet laughter and the scent of fresh tea, Ji-woo finally understood. The only empire that mattered was the one built on love.
Come and go, oh, our love will always grow. Through the storms and gentle rain, we'll bloom and start again. You're my eternal bloom, a rose that breaks the gloom. In your arms I'm home, never again